Hey, it's Brett Clicker with Spider Fit Kids. Today, let's talk about conditioning before puberty. Maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a teacher, physical education teacher, and you have athletes or youngsters that you want to condition, you want to improve their performance, their aerobic performance, whatever it is. And this is another example of how kids aren't just little adults. Their physiology works different from ours, and those differences, if we understand them, we can actually create better programs for our kids. So the first thing to understand is that kids prior to puberty are primarily aerobic. They get their energy from aerobic pathways. So if you look at a child's muscle fiber type compared to an adult's muscle fiber type, children tend to have a higher ratio of slow twitch, type 1A muscle fibers. And what that means is you have the type 1, type 2, 2A, 2B, type 1. The type 1 muscle fibers, they use fat, they use oxygen, which means you utilize fat to get fuel. They're more resistant to fatigue. As we get into the type 2 muscle fiber types, they start to use more glycogen, which is stored glycogen. Essentially, they burn hotter, they create more, they're the fast twitch, so they create more power, but they fatigue quicker. So children tend to have a higher ratio of the type 1 muscle fibers, and they get their energy from aerobic pathways. They have more intermuscular triglycerides. What does that mean? Well, again, they're getting their energy from fat, so there's going to be more triglycerides, more fat available for energy. So if we think about what that means in the big picture, we realize, well, kids are going to be, they're probably not going to need as much rest time. If we're doing conditioning, let's say we're trying to improve their ability to last in a soccer game or a football game or basketball game or whatever it is. So if we're trying to improve that, we know that, well, they're primarily type 1 muscle fibers, they're getting their energy from fat. Realize there's some other things that go with that. When you're getting a lot of your energy from fat, it means you're not really good at the glycolytic pathway, which means we can't really create a lot of anaerobic power. So training a child for the needs of a specific sport it doesn't make any sense. If I'm training a child, I'm not training a prepubescent child, let's say a 8-year-old. I'm not training an 8-year-old basketball player. I'm training an 8-year-old. That 8-year-old may decide they don't like basketball by the time they're 10. They may decide to be a cross-country runner or a bow hunter or who knows what they may decide to be. I'm not training them from a physical standpoint to be a basketball player. I'm training their physiological system and their biomechanical system, so they're gonna have opportunities to do all kinds of stuff in their whole life. So looking at that, being like, okay, well, what does this child need? How can I get them to be more resilient to fatigue? Well, knowing that, okay, the aerobic pathways now, I can't really improve a lot of anaerobic power with the child. The way children get faster and stronger is through improved motor coordination, practicing how to move the right way. So if I focus my conditioning on that, so if I'm going to do a circuit at the end of practice or at the end of a PE or whatever it is, and I'm doing that circuit to improve their fitness, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to run them into the ground, to have them doing line sprints until they throw up, to have them doing burpees or up downs or whatever it is until they get sick. It makes a lot more sense to follow their physiology. So looking deeper into that physiology, if I don't do much aerobic power, it's more neurological pathways that I'm improving. Well, also with the ability to use primarily fat as fuel, it means that I'm not going to have as high concentrations of lactic acid. So these kids are going to be able to actually recover quicker in between bouts of exercise. So I don't need to do really long recoveries. But, it says my battery's low in here. There we go. They can recover quicker, and also in that recovery, they're able to regenerate phosphocreatine, which is part of what helps create ATP, which is what we need to create muscular power and things like that. So children recover quicker. So let's say we run down to the end of a basketball court and back. Kids can recover pretty quick between those bouts, but here's the thing. If we start putting those bouts together and we're having them run down 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times down and back in the court, while children are able to, the mechanisms for them to recover are pretty good. They have lower lactic acid. They're able to regenerate phosphocreatine. They actually can't resynthesize ATP as fast while they're exercising. So while they can do it while they recover, while they're exercising, their ability to maintain quality movement, to maintain power as they move and things like that, it's diminished. They can't really resynthesize ATP. And so we look at that and say, okay, well, we don't need much rest times, but if I'm pushing kids to do a minute of high intensity work, really kids in the energy system that they're able to really perform at, it's about around 15 to 20 seconds. That doesn't mean we can't have kids do things for 30 seconds, but realize that physiologically, after about 15 to 20 seconds, they're significantly fatigued. So if we go back to, well, how are we going to see improvement? It's going to be through learning true motor patterns. Well, if they're just doing things and they're beat up and they can't do them right, well, we're not teaching them anything. And if you're working with young children, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, even 11 years old, maybe 12, and we have that time and we're not using it effectively, or using that time, we're running them into the ground when we actually could be teaching them movement skills for life, that's not a good time economy. So the recommendation would be, if we're going to do conditioning circuits, think about the work ratio. We're going to have them work somewhere around 20 seconds is good. Because for one, too, they're kids, they're going to lose interest. But around 20 seconds of work, have an expectation for quality. Don't beat them up so hard they're crawling up and down stairs. I was at a high school a couple weekends ago and I saw a Pop Warner team, these young kids, and they were crawling up the stairs as the coach was yelling, mental toughness, mental toughness. I mean, it's stuff like that. That coach has an opportunity. He has a window of time where he could be actually improving their performance, and they're choosing to just beat them up, which makes no sense. So we take that, we keep our work ratios around 20 seconds, but we also, our rest ratios wouldn't need to be what they need to be for an adult. So it's not like, well, if I work for 20 seconds, I need to rest for 40 seconds or 60 seconds. I could rest for 20 seconds and the kids will be able to go again. That's a great way to ensure quality of what they're doing. They're still going to have enough capacity to understand what they're doing and do quality, but they're not going to run themselves on the ground, and they can recover and do it again. Now, you may be saying, well, my child plays basketball. They have to run for an entire half. They play football. They can't go and take time out. They play soccer. They run all the time, so we should have them out there running all the time. And there's nothing wrong with having kids run for an extended period of time. But remember, you're training a kid. You're not training a soccer player. You're not training a football player. This is a child's physiological system that they're going to need to be optimized if they're going to need to perform for the rest of their life. So if we have that time to condition, looking at this and saying, what is the biggest bang for my buck? Keep the work ratios, keep the work time relatively low, keep the rest times relatively low, focus on quality, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. Now, if you want them to get used to the pace or whatever it is during a game, well, run your practices, run your sessions at that tempo. Keep them moving. Don't have them standing around in lines. Don't have them standing around listening to you blabber. That kids can't stand and listen forever, especially like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. They can't really do that. So have kids moving. So realize these physiological differences. Optimize your time. Remember, they're not a little soccer player that we're going to train them specifically to train their anaerobic capacity for soccer or for football or for basketball. They're a child that just needs to develop everything. They need to be able to accelerate, decelerate, all these movement patterns, direction change. They need to be strong. They need all these different things are what they need. So if you have time to do that, that's a way better way to use your time in understanding the way their bodies are made up and understanding the way their physiology works. So hopefully that helps. Get out there, help kids. For more information like this, hey, give us a like here. Follow us on SpiderFit Kids. Every day we're posting stuff to help you inspire the next generation to become a future of happy, healthy, active adults. Join our mission. I'll see you soon.